Hello, this is Greg Smalley on Pod 366, a Weird Movies podcast, joined today under an avatar of Kyle MacLachlan, whose head is split open with a flower peeking between it. We have Rafael Moreira, who writes for 366 Weird Movies occasionally, will be in the new book when it comes out. He has several entries in there and also writes for an underground music site called Hessian Film, Hessian film.com. Rafael, congratulations. Happy to see you here.
Hello, Greg. Thanks for having me here.
Here for the first time. And
Correct.
yeah, let's just jump right into what we've got, since we have 10 new movies to cover today. I'm hoping you're going to be able to see the screen. Rafael is joining us all the way from Portugal, I should point out. So if there's a little bit of a delay at times, that's why. Can you see the picture on the screen, Rafael?
Yes, I can.
All right, excellent. Now, normally Giles Edwards would give these stills a very lavish description for people who are listening to the audio-only version. I'm going to give it a much simpler description of what we're looking at, and then throw it over to Rafael for some comments. What we have here is probably a 17th, 18th century foppish gentleman dressed up in a lavish outfit with painted face and makeup on, and what's probably a wig, and he appears to be being bitten on the neck through his scarf by a gray, bald, monstrous thing, which we can call, since we have the name of this film right here, the Vourdalak. It's a Vourdalak. Rafael, I assume you have looked at this trailer and have some idea what we're looking at?
Yes, I think that's a good description. From the trailer, it seems like a sort of campy, like horror comedy movie. I think at least that's the vibe I got from the trailer and this image as well. And you once pointed out correctly that I have covered mostly art house fare for the website, which is true. But I can also enjoy this type of thing. So I guess I've only looked at the trailer, but from what I've seen, I guess it's a potentially enjoyable film, I guess.
I think it is if you're talking horror films, this one probably has some good art house credibility because it is from a Tolstoy story. So it goes back, it has some literary basis to it. Vourdalaks are sort of Eastern European variation on a vampire folklore. They have some unique features to them. For example, they prefer to feast on the blood of their close relatives. In this one, our gentleman we have there is not the victim, but he's some sort of nobleman who becomes stranded at the cabin while he's seeking refuge on the road, and the Vourdalak comes to visit. It's from Oscilloscope, and it is in theaters now, and I think we will probably have a review of it up next week. Not from me, but from someone else. Any last thoughts on the Vourdalak, Rafael?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay.
I'm hoping to see it whenever it's available around my parts.
Yes, these are all, of course, debuting in the United States. I have no idea when they will be in Portugal. Some of them could have already played there. For
I guess some
example,
of them are also part of the festival circuit, probably.
right. For example, the next one is the image I have here And again, I will give it a much less extensive description than Giles would, but it's just of a woman sitting probably in what's probably a bus stop. It's basically a very small concrete bunker with a bench sitting in the middle of a field, nowhere, and with the large text above her describing the name of the movie, Chronicles of a Wandering Saint, written and directed by Tomas Gomez Bustillo. Rafael, thoughts about this one? What do you know about it?
Yes, well, I watched the trailer as well, and I searched up a bit on the film's website, and this does seem to have a bit of satirical edge to it. So I'm not sure if there's a Buñuel angle to it. Going by the names, is it a Spanish film?
It's Argentinian.
Oh, okay. Because well, if it were I was going to say that if it were Spanish, there's a very curious relationship that the Spaniards have with the Catholicism.
Mhm.
But I guess that also extends to countries like Argentina due to colonization. So I guess it makes sense for this type of film to pop up around these areas. I don't really know what to expect. The trailer was a bit elusive, I guess, but yeah, it seems to be a bit of it seems to have this satirical angle going for it, and I guess that can be interesting if done well.
Right. So it's about a simple kind of peasant woman who, as I understand it, kind of stages a fake miracle, and then in the second half of the film, real miracles start happening, and it's magical realism in the South American tradition, but with, as Raphael points out, a sort of satirical angle to it. And we do not know much based on the trailer. But that is Chronicles of a Wandering Saint, out in theaters here somewhere. Do not know about Portugal. Um,
Probably much
Finally, the
later.
third sort of art house movie that is in theaters this week here in the United States again. We have a poster of it. It is an abstract background dominated mainly by greens with some purples in there and three sets of eyeballs poking out from nowhere, just from a sort of muddly background. The title of the film is Family Portrait, a film by Lucy Kerr. We have only a trailer for it and some brief descriptions. Raphael, did you have any thoughts? Did you get a sense of this one from?
Yes, this one was also very elusive, but it seems to be going by the trailer and even this picture as well. It seems to be a more of a contemplative kind of film. From what I gathered from the description, the synopsis, seems to be about the disintegration of family, sort of unconscious familial tensions, which is always interesting. That's a theme that I find myself drawn to. That's why I really like the movies of Michel Haneke, for example, which explore all these contradictions of bourgeois family traditions, etc. I'm not sure if this is what this film also goes for, but that's the impression I got. It seems to be about strange occurrences at a family gathering. So I think it has potential to be interesting as well.
Yeah, I think what I got from it is it's so the plot very simply is about a family gathered for a family portrait, but the mother goes missing. The mother of the main character goes missing,
Yeah.
and her daughter just spends the film kind of searching for her missing mother, and things get more anxious. But I think, and you'll see if you watch the trailer, which may be embedded on our site, it has sort of an experimental, I think it's an experimental film take on it with visuals, and especially the sound design has a lot of drones and little whispering voices that you can't make out, designed to increase your anxiety and put you in the position of somebody who's missing, searching for a family member that they can't find. So that's my take, kind of experimental film style drama. It doesn't look like there's very much elaborate plot.
Yes,
I
definitely.
also think people have hinted that it has some connection to COVID, although it's not COVID specific, I don't think, but it might have been made during the COVID period. So that is Family Portrait, the third film in theaters, and now off to releases. And this one, I have a still that I will describe very simply. It is Kyle MacLachlan looking out of a dark closet through some slats, and light is streaming onto, strafing across his face at different angles. And this, of course, is a relatively famous scene from Blue Velvet. A lot of famous scenes in Blue Velvet. This is one, of course. Kyle MacLachlan's Jeffrey is spying on Frank Booth as he's getting up to some of his sexual perversions. So I'm assuming that, well, first off, I'll point out that the reason we're covering this is Criterion re-releasing this film in a 4K UHD disc. Also comes with a Blu-ray, but we're going to spend a little time talking about Blue Velvet, which is obviously a favorite of ours. And I'm assuming, Rafael, it's a favorite of yours too, based on your avatar.
Yeah, exactly. I picked it up precisely because I knew we were discussing Blue Velvet, and I think this movie occupies a very special place in Lynch's filmography. In fact, I think if we were to see his filmography as a spectrum, going from his most, on one end, his most, straightforward commercial fare, like The Straight Story, and then on the other end, the more experimental stuff like Inland Empire, etc. Blue Velvet would probably be in the middle. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
It's I think it's a relatively accessible movie, and I would feel comfortable recommending it to more conventional movie minded people. But at the same time, it contains a lot of Lynchianisms, a lot of his signature themes and obsessions, and so yeah, I think that makes it a very special movie, at least for me. And I'm also very happy to see it being reissued by Criterion because I think that means automatically that it is in good hands.
Yes, absolutely. And yes, I'm not sure, Raphael, I think you're probably a bit younger than me. I actually saw this in theaters when it came out. I went in not having any idea what to expect. I just knew it was by the director of Eraserhead, and boy, was I shocked at just how good it was and how sort of scary it is, because it although it's not supernatural in any way, it goes sort of deep into the heart of evil with the young protagonist encountering truly one of the most evil villains ever depicted on screen, I would say, in frightening guise in Frank Booth.
Yeah, lots of nightmare fuel.
Yes, yes, and of course, the famous scene where Frank catches Jeffrey and takes him on a ride, uh, part to a brothel, and then gives him a little warning about what will happen if he doesn't back off. Uh, it truly, as Raphael says, I think it can be recommended to general audiences who want to get into Lynch, with the caveat that there is a lot of sort of disturbing sexual perversion in it, which may put some people off. But it is very, very much a recommended film, and one that is not so weird that it's going to turn people off. So, any final thoughts before I move on?
I think we have covered up pretty much what there is to cover, besides what we already said about the movie on the site, for example.
Yeah. Yes. I wrote a pretty long essay on that one on the site.
Hmm.
Okay, so moving on. This is a Blu-ray release of a movie that, well, what I'm going to do is I've chosen the back cover for this, and I'm just going to describe it first. The back cover of this Blu-ray, it has some spider-shaped cutouts, and pictures of the main cast placed inside those cutouts, and then I'll read the text from the back, and you will probably know what movie I'm talking about if you're familiar with our canon of weird films. The text begins, an all-new remake of the 1967 cult classic, exclamation mark. In a dilapidated rural mansion, the last generation of the degenerate inbred Mary family, played by Skylar Fast, Emma Kiefer, and Cody J. Briscoe, lives with the inherited curse of a disease that causes them to mentally regress. The family chauffeur Bruno, played by Noel Jason Scott, looks out for them and clears up their indiscretions. Trouble comes when greedy distant relatives and their lawyer arrive to dispossess the family of their home, but the children will protect their house and bloodline at all costs. Featuring appearances by genre favorites Beverly Washburn, who was in the original, Ron Chaney, whose either father or grandfather was in the original, Robert Mukes, and Brink Stevens. And of course, it is a remake of Spider Baby. And watching the trailer, I'm going to say it does not look like a particularly good remake. However, I would like to point out that the original feature is included on this Blu-ray as a bonus. So it is not a waste to buy this. Simply switch the feature. The feature is the original movie. The bonus is this remake, and you have a perfect purchase. Rafael, are you familiar with this at all? Did you see the trailer for the remake?
Yes, of course. I actually haven't seen the original. I guess that's a hole in my weird movie curriculum. I need to treat that as soon as possible. But I do know it has Lon Chaney, so that's always a big attractive for me at least. Yeah, I wouldn't like to be, overtly cynical or negative based on just a trailer. But as you said, this doesn't really look very good at all. I found like the performances and just the aura in general that the trailer gives off to be kind of amateurish, I guess. Um, well, maybe that's part of the charm, but in any case, I think what you said about reversing the roles of the films and making the original the main one probably is a good idea. But yeah, maybe this will be a good one for me because, as I said, as I haven't seen the original one, maybe this is a good way to catch up to it.
It does say there are some twists to the story. The original is though very low budget, is much better acted. There are some really Jill Banner plays one of the little spider obsessed children. She gives a pretty darn good performance. Of course, Lon Chaney Jr. Is in it, so the performances are much better in the original, and it is quite surprising for a old dark house horror film. Nothing like what you would expect going in, so I'm not going to spoil it beyond the description we read from the back. But let's move on to something even probably even more whimsical. This is a Blu-ray cover featuring three men who all sort of look a little bit like Bruce Lee, but not quite. And the title of the collection is The Game of Clones, Brucesploitation Collection from Severin. It is a 7-disc film of movies that were made soon after Bruce Lee's death, starring actors like Bruce Lee, Bruce Lee, Bruce L.E., Bruce L.I., all intended to trick people into thinking they were seeing either new or lost Bruce Lee movies. And these movies were frequently kind of crazy. I don't know. I'm probably guessing you haven't seen any of these, Raphael, but I'll let you say what you think about this set.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I guess up until now, this would be some pretty difficult to find,
Uh,
most of them. But well, as I said previously, like you correctly pointed out, I have mostly covered art house stuff for the site, but I can definitely appreciate trash, and I'm definitely a fan of the so bad it's good genre, and I think there's a lot of potential here in that sense. And there's also an aside that I would like to point out,
Okay.
which is I checked the movies that are on this collection, and unfortunately there is one missing, which is actually a Spanish production
Hmm.
by directed by none other than Jesus Franco.
Hmm.
Yes, Jesus Franco directed a Brucesploitation picture. It's called The Shadow of the Judoka against Dr. Wong. I
Hmm.
haven't seen it, and I think it almost has a legendary status because it's very, very hard to find. But what I know about it is mostly from a website that's unfortunately no longer on the internet. It was a Brazilian website dedicated to this type of gems, and the descriptions were pretty wild. Apparently, the movie, so it was a very cheap movie, and Jess Franco, he went to the point of literally stealing footage from actual Bruce Lee movies.
Hmm.
I think that gives you an idea of the type of production. But yeah, I think there's a lot of potential here in that sense of movies that are can be very enjoyable in a more in a funny sense than anything else.
Wow. Yes, it is listed as volume one, so maybe the Jess Franco movie pops up in volume two, although I kind of
Yeah, I
doubt it,
hope so.
but maybe that sounds kind of fascinating. But I wanted to point out the set includes a movie which I've seen clips from that is utterly crazy called The Dragon Lives Again. And this is probably almost worth buying the set for. It's a movie where Bruce Lee goes to hell, where he meets Popeye the Sailor, and together they fight Dracula and some other characters like from Western things like Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name, and I think James Bond appears, and Emmanuel appears for some reason. And so they take all these characters probably without permission, I'm guessing, and put them into a kung fu setting. Uh, but I've seen the sections of Popeye fighting and using his famous pipe as a weapon are just crazy, and I would really like to see that movie. So here's an opportunity for that one. Moving on, here is a movie that is new release movie coming out on Blu-ray. The still is of three children. Two are armed with airsoft guns, they're hiding behind some logs. It has sort of a late 70s, early 80s look to the film, kind of a very warm shot on film with greens and browns look to it. And this is a still from Riddle of Fire, which is a new release movie that I wrote up for 366 Weird Movies and gave a recommended. It's definitely, I think so far, it's one of the top 10 movies I've seen of the year. So I would expect by the end of the year, it to be hanging around at least in the top 20. It's a sort of fairy tale story about these three kids who go on this sort of long quest to ultimately get the password to the Wi-Fi so they can play a video game, but it leads them eventually through a series of escalating quests into a battle with a cult of witches. And it is just a lot of fun told from a child's viewpoint with a lot of child logic and adults acting not quite the way adults really act, but like the way children might imagine adults act when they're not around. So, Rafael, I'm guessing you've probably only seen the trailer to this one, but did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, that's correct. But your description leaves me with a lot of curiosity. That does seem a pretty interesting movie. From the impressions I gathered, it seemed to me to be part of a genre that I find interesting, which is these blown children, mischievous children left to themselves, apart from the adult world, and sort of creating their own world, their own alternative world, sort of like The Wild Boys by Burton Mandico.
Yeah.
So, and you mentioned this more fairy tale aspect to it, and that's certainly also attractive to me. So, yeah, I'm very curious about this one. So, I'll see it. I guess I'll see it when I have the opportunity to.
Yes, I would recommend checking it out when it's available. Something else, this is a kind of neat release, 3-film release. I have the Blu-ray cover here. It's done in black, neon pink, and neon yellow with the director's name, Ozon, in the and some pink hued clips from each movie. It's a triple feature. Ozon's Transgressive triple is how it's being pitched, and the 3 movies in it are Sitcom, which is the Teorama sort of influenced variation that he did based in a sitcom world, Criminal Lovers, which is a Hansel and Gretel style movie about 2 teenage criminals on the run, and Water Drops on Burning Rocks, which is the one I haven't either seen or read descriptions of previously. It's a adaptation of a Fassbinder play about an old, or sort of a May-December romance between a old gay man and a young, I believe, bisexual man. And that one reportedly is sort of a little bit of a drama, a little bit of a comedy with a musical number in it. I've seen Criminal Lovers. It was have not seen Sitcom. It's reviewed on the site, however, so I'm somewhat familiar with it, and no idea about Water Drops on Burning Rocks. How about you, Rafael?
Yeah, I haven't seen either of these films, but I read the reviews on the website, and I am familiar with the director. However, and I must say, I'm generally appreciative of what I've seen by him, although what I've seen by him are older flicks, so I don't really know what to expect precisely about these new ones. But well, the trailer, it's a bit discouraging what you said about criminal lovers, I guess, but the trailers do seem to paint a bit. I think it seems to be very typical Ozon, very similar to what he did before with a more transgressive edge, which is something that he already experimented with before.
Well, you can check out Criminal Lovers. I did, it wasn't terrible. Shane Wilson just reviewed it this week, and he was kind of lukewarm about it as well.
Hmm.
Like most Ozon films, it has good parts. I just didn't think it overall worked the tone. What movie of his did you really like?
Well, let me think a bit about it because it's been a while since I've checked any of his films, but I guess I'm not sure how it's translated in the English version, but eight with femme, 8 women,
Oh, okay,
for
yeah.
example. I think that's a good one.
Mm. Haven't seen it. I've heard of it. Yeah. Okay. I imagine these would then probably at least be interesting to you. I'm kind of curious about checking out Sitcom particularly. Um, Giles Edwards reviewed that for us, and I have not yet seen it. 2 more releases, each of which are less important, particularly this one. I will describe it quickly. It's the Blu-ray cover, 2 movies. In the first, it's a Japanese schoolgirl with a machine gun for an arm, perhaps a very elaborate machine gun, a Gatling gun. And in the second picture, more of the same, except that there are a lot more characters and a lot more guns. It is Machine Gun, or Machine Girl, the Machine Girl Chronicles, 2 movies. Machine Girl, the jacked version, which is just a restored version, and Rise of the Machine Girls, the sequel. These are about what you would expect if you've seen anything in the modern Japanese sort of splatterpunk horror genre. It's a lot of absurd violence and schoolgirl fetish, and just a lot of violence and action and very fake looking gore, slapped together, very fast moving, intended for, quick gratification of your senses. Rafael, any thoughts about these?
Yeah, well, I think you summed it up pretty well. It's pure camp, right?
Yeah.
Uh, well, I think that there's a place for this in cinema. I guess as I was saying, I can appreciate the more trashy stuff, stuff like similar to this. Like I think my main reference in this sort of subgenre is Tokyo Gore Police, which I believe you
Right.
probably have seen as well. Which is I wouldn't call it a bad movie. I think it really it's entertaining and it does what it sets out to do, like this pretty much. So I guess it's on its own terms, it's a good movie. It does what it sets out to do.
Yes. Now, so Tokyo Gore Police is the ideal of it's like the best of this genre. So Machine
Yeah,
Girl would
probably.
be kind of like you took out all of the little satirical points that they put in Tokyo Gore Police and a lot of the sort of surreal imagination in some of those characters and just took them out and were left with the action and gore. You would have Machine Girl pretty much, which is enough for some people. But I thought Tokyo Gore Police really was the exceptional version of this genre.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
yeah. Now for this last one, I haven't seen it. The still is of what looks like a stage production with people in I'm going to say armor battling or I don't know what it's a representation of, but it's a stage play. People are watching it. And this is a still from a movie who's been had a couple of different English translations. I think they're going with the most important thing, love. In French, it's l'important c'est d'aimer, which Giles would correct my pronunciation if he was here, and he's not. Would you like to correct my pronunciation, Raphael?
I think you did good. L'importance da mer. Yeah.
Yeah, much better when you say it. Do you know anything about it, Raphael?
Yes, I have seen it
Oh,
a long time
great.
ago. I would personally, I would say it's relatively minor Zulawski. I wouldn't rank it with his very best. That would
Mhm.
be, I guess, Possession, for example, and a couple of others. But well, I'm a bit biased because I generally like Zulawski. So
Mhm.
I think I haven't seen a single movie by him that I consider bad.
Mhm.
So this one certainly it's a very interesting movie. So I would certainly recommend it to anyone interested in the director or even in weird cinema in general. It's interesting that the still that you picked is about a stage play because that's a theme throughout the movie, performance and theater, and how that intermingles with real life. Well, as expected, Zulawski always does some interesting things in terms of thematically. So yeah, it's a good movie, just not top tier Zulawski for me. That would be Possession or On the Silver Glove, but still very good nonetheless.
So as I understand it, this one is more, it's those other elements or other movies have fantastic elements, and this one is just a sort of straightforward melodrama. Is that correct?
Well, the melodrama part, yes, but I think as you can expect from Zulawski, it's not that straightforward. There
Uh-huh.
are no fantastical elements. That's true.
Mhm.
It's purely a drama, but you can expect him to go pretty wild anyway, even with just the purely human drama. Just like his last feature, which curiously enough was filmed in Portugal, Cosmos. It's also a drama, but it's by no means conventional or straightforward.
Well, excellent. And our own L. Rob Hubbard is the huge Zulawski fan on our site. He has
Yeah, I
pretty
know.
much taken it upon himself to write up just about every movie Zulawski has released. Um, so he, of course, covered this one as well. Um, okay, we did finish it off. We have about 3 minutes. Is there anything you'd like to say before I ask you the final question that we ask everyone?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything we had set out to pretty well.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in. And let me ask you that final question. We usually ask guests, but I also ask the co-hosts when it's their first time on. And the question is, what is your hometown and can you recommend a restaurant for us there?
Well, I guess that's a bit different for me because I'm from Portugal.
Right.
I'm from the north, from Porto. I'm from a village in Porto. Restaurants, well, I'm not sure if they're actually on the map, so to speak, but let's say, um, well, I'm a fan of pretty much the regional restaurants here. I would say that.
Okay, nothing specific, but just regional restaurants in the Porto area.
Yes, if you ever come to, I would say if you ever come to Porto, a recommendation I would give is to stray a bit from the, let's say, the metropolitan area, go to the more rural areas, and try to seek what we call a tasco, which is basically, I think it's the equivalent to a tavern. That's
Mhm.
where we'll find the more, it's not refined at all. It's just the pure rural tradition. We will find the Portuguese food in its more brute form, so to speak.
A lot of seafood.
A bit also, yeah.
Okay, excellent. I should point out, I didn't mention him, Rafael maybe doesn't want me to mention, but I'm going to mention he is planning on making a new short film. He has made one short film before and working on the second one, but I don't have any information about that other than he told me he was working on it. So,
Yeah, that's correct. But the thing is that that's still a long way until its completion. It's written, and I'm still about to film it. So yeah, very still very embryonic.
good. I just wanted people to know that sometimes our writers do actually make films as well. So,
Hmm,
all right.
nice.
Thank you, Raphael, for being on. And we will see you next week. Giles Edwards will return. I have no guests scheduled at the current time, but we'll just go through the new releases as usual. Thanks again. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Raphael.
Thank you.